Mr. Fix-It is here to take on your DIY dilemmas. Text or WhatsApp to 083 3010 103.
Oh yes, Wednesday, 27 minutes past 10, my least favourite time of the week. Let the torture begin.
Well, you know, I have always suggested that you are allergic to any sort of manual labour, physical work at all. And the version of events I'm getting from a good source is that you lifted a few pieces of turf and put out your back. It just sums it up. It just brings home just what a weakling you are.
So, unfortunately, the other day there was a bit of a gust of wind and a tree was about to fall on an orphanage, and single-handedly I dashed.
I hope you used your head, as in, put your head in the way, because that's the only thing that would physically be able for it.
Anyway, there was a slight injury cause, but, it's healing up, and it's a pleasure not to see you in person today.
And likewise, Will, and likewise.
So, shall we get down to business?
All joking aside, I hope you feel better soon. Not too soon now, but soon.
No, you don't.
Okay. It is the polite thing to say, though.
Yeah, but since when are we going to do that? Let's start with Derek, who is in Tang, in County Westmeath.
Tang, I love Tang. That's a great name.
It's a very small place, but It's a nice place. Anyway, he says he's starting to relight the open fireplace, and he's wondering if there's a handy way to do this, because a bit like Faulkner, he's allergic to doing a bit of work. Thanks, Derek.
Good man, Derek.
So he is particularly concerned with that black, liquidy, runny stuff that comes down the chimney. We haven't used this much over the summer because it's been the first good summer in many, many years. But now it looks like creosote pouring down the chimney. What to do?
Yeah, it's actually very close to creosote. It's a tar creosote. The original old-fashioned creosote has tar oils in it. It's quite similar. It smells pretty horrible. We always say to people during the summer, with your stove or your range, open up the vents, let as much air move through the chimney as you can. Because if you don't, you tend to get condensation in the chimney. And then what happens is you get this tar running down the chimney. So the same thing still applies. Open it up if you're not using it. Open it up. If you have a soot box outside, take the door off the soot box and let air move through it. Just when you're not using it, and then because this is so bad and you want it sorted quickly, because suddenly the nights are closing in and you can feel the temperature is a little bit chillier at night time. I would say, either if you want an instant result, light one of the chimney logs, the chimney cleaning logs, or else just get, hot spot or bluestone, copper sulphate, and just burn that on a regular basis. But while you're burning any of these things, open up the damper, open the windows, get air moving through it. And that's the secret to getting all that dried out. So, as we often say, some chimney sweeps will ask householders that have particularly problematic chimneys to burn a fire log or 2 fire logs 2 days in a row, depending how bad the chimney is, before they visit, because that means that it's dried up and they're cleaning. When they clean the chimney, it will be much cleaner at the end of it than just trying to deal with that sticky, tarry stuff, because it will dry it out and leave this sticky black stuff. It'll dry it into a powder, and it makes the chimney much easier to clean. It's not that they want it easier to clean. Well, obviously everybody likes their job to be a bit easier, but it also leaves it cleaner, and that's the real purpose of it.
Is that a bottle of urine you have beside you?
How can you see that? No, it is not. But if it is, I would throw it at you.
It looks very yellow.
Yeah, I like a little bit of my waddy orange. Well, pineapple and orange, to be honest, in it.
Yes, and of course times are hard, so you don't actually buy a bottle of it. You just refill for probably the 20th time a bottle of Ballygowan.
No, just every couple of days. That's all. Actually, it's really only on a Wednesday morning. I do a fresh one every Wednesday morning. I'm so nervous.
By the way, tell Jennings to wake up there. He looks bored.
He is practically asleep, and he is telling you that you have 2 more minutes. I presume that's what those 2 fingers mean. He's telling you, you've only 1 more minute left now.
No, what he's telling me is I'm number one.
Yeah. You were his number 2, but now you're his number 1. Yeah.
Okay. Our next question then concerns leaves that are falling, and Robbie in Burr asks, is it my imagination that they're actually coming off the trees earlier than usual? I normally fill several tons of bags, he says, maybe 3 or 4 of them. That's a lot of leaves.
Oh, ton bags. I'd say that's ton bags. You know, the big skippy bags, ton bags.
I'd say
okay. That's what it is, yeah.
I was going to say, he must be picking up a small forest. So apart from cutting down the trees, which is like curing the disease by killing the patient, any ideas on what to do?
Well, first of all, like this year, I was in Dublin mid-August and I couldn't get over all the leaves that were down. And it was simply down to the dry summer. And particularly, in areas like that in Dublin where they're not in the middle of these would be trees that are in the middle of a footpath with a very small bit of soil at the bottom, and the water's finding it very hard to get in there. So that a lot of trees have lost their leaves very early this year, and that applies right across the country. So I would say a couple of things. If you have a big enough garden, I used to do exactly like that caller used to do. I used to fill the ton bags, the skippy bags, and I'd we get them collected. And actually, here's the thing: if you want, start from the beginning. I would say to you, use a blow vac or a rake to take the leaves off the drive and off your lawn, because if you leave them sitting on the lawn, the lack of light does cause a problem over the winter. So it's much easier to deal with leaves when they're dry. So I would just take them off the lawn and off the drive, and because they get very mashed up in the drive, and when they get mashed up in the drive, then they lend themselves to weeds growing in the future, because they basically compost down and they become like a compost, a soil that weeds will thrive in. So take them off the drive and take them off the lawn, put them onto shrub beds if you have them, and if you have shrub beds, just leave them there. And they will break down, and then next spring you will have very little to fill. Now, if you feel very strongly about it and you don't like the leaves anywhere, what I would say is get one of the skippy bags and fill it, but just leave it there, and it all settles down. And you might be able to fill that, you fill it, and then a month later it's only about a third full. It is all compressed down, and then you can fill it again, and then a month later it's down again, and then you can get it collected. So there are people, Skippy, I'm trying to think of the name, one of the best known ones, I can't think of it, Lynch's.
Okay, it's only live radio.
Yeah, exactly. So they come along, you put the bag somewhere near the perimeter of your house. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's leaves or whether it's household waste, but they come along and they pick up the bag and bring it off for you. And it really doesn't matter what's in it. But obviously in this case, you can just fill the skippy bag, fill it again. It'll go down and down and down. And they're able for the weight of that without any problem whatsoever. And once it's all compostable waste, then it's very easy for them to just get rid of the whole thing as compost. But it's quite a good idea if you have shrub beds, just leave the leaves on the shrub beds and they stop weeds from coming up, and just leave it alone. They'll break down. A lot of that nutrients will go down into the soil, and then early next spring you can just take them all off, and you won't feel anything like the volume, because everything will be broken down, and you'll have probably about a tenth of the volume that you would have had if you were doing it on a regular basis. The other thing I'd say to you is we often at this time of the year mention to people and every builders, providers in the hardware shop in the country sells them, the hairy mollies that go into the gutter to stop the gutters from filling up. So they're like a 4 metre long bottle brush. They go into the gutter. They allow the gutter to work absolutely as normal, but the only difference is no solids go into it. So the leaves don't go into it. They sit on top of the hairy molly, on top of the bottle brush, and then the first bit of wind, they just blow off. So the water still goes down. You don't get block gullies. You don't get block gutters. You don't get that horrible, disgusting build-up, and they don't cost a fortune. So that's a thing you'd recommend to any household if they have big trees around.
Another possibility, you could pop into Mitchell's Industrials and pick up a Stihl blower.
Yeah, brilliant.
And what would help is winning Rear of the Year. And Cloonan doesn't qualify for that. I'm not allowed to enter.
For the obvious reason.
And by the way, rear of the year refers to your back garden. And if you haven't already taken some pictures of your pride and joy, then Midlands103.com, fill out that entry form. Still plenty of time to enter, and €500 to spend with our friends at Mitchell's Industrial in the Riverview Commercial Park in Tullamore can be yours.
Maybe you should share a few pictures of your rear, Will.
Right now it's in spasms, so I don't think that would be a good idea.
No, definitely not.
23 minutes to 11.
Mr. Fixes with Brian Cloonan. Call 0818 300 103 and put our toolman to the test.
In the next hour on Midlands 103, Westmeath County Council sends a letter to Conor McGregor concerning his presidential bid. Now, will it give him some hope? Or does it tell him that he doesn't even have to bother making the journey? Let's find out in just under an hour's time. Brian Cloonan is with us first from Cloonan's Hardware in Tullamore, and our next listener has sent an image. So they're asking what's going on in their bathroom where the paint on the wall seems to be coming off. They have a fan and they always allow ventilation by having the window open. But you can see it's a very uneven looking surface, Brian. And there's a line as well, kind of a dark and light line as if part of the wall is wet.
Well, I'm looking at this in studio, Will, but your equipment is so poor. It's very hard to make out. But I will assume from your description that is the paint flaking off? Is it kind of bubbly or is it flaking off in flakes? Can you see?
I don't see any flakes, but I see bubbles all right, yes.
Okay. So what may have happened here is sometimes people put a sealer on a wall and in one sense it seems to make sense, but most emulsion paint is permeable. So that means that the water, the moisture, the condensation, the steam can go through the paint and into the wall and then dry out naturally. But if there's any sealer on it whatsoever, it gets trapped between the wall and the paint, and then the paint ends up bubbling. So I would say in this case, really the best thing to do is to, one or two things, first of all, just give it a decent sanding, sand off all the flaky stuff, and ideally use a bathroom paint or an acrylic eggshell, or even if you have any in the garage at home, if it's just a white paint, and if you have any outdoor emulsion paint like Santex or Weather Shield or something like that, that's actually quite good. But the best of them are the bathroom paints. They're non-permeable, so the moisture won't pass through, and they're also anti-mould. So I don't see any mould there. I suppose it's always worth mentioning to people that if they have a particular problem with mould, because it's coming into that time of the year where this will be a real problem. So historically, if you've had a problem with mould in your bedroom, in your bathroom in the past, now is the time to put on the preventative. So that's just use one of the mould killers and just sponge it on. There doesn't have to be any mould there. Just wherever there used to be mould, sponge it on. Because what very often happens is there can be a little bit of insulation missing in the wall cavity and where it was pumped or where the sheets were dropped in and there was a little bit broken off, and then you get a cold patch, and the mould can start from that smallest little cold patch, and then because it's a live growing thing, it just spreads and spreads and spreads. So now is the time to put on a bit of mould killer to stop it forming in the first place. But as I say, in this case, light sanding and paint it with a bathroom paint, and I think you'll be absolutely fine.
Excellent. Next query. Our pine kitchen table is starting to look the worse for wear. Now, in fairness, it has had 3 teenagers eat meals and do homework on it for the last 8 years. Are you alive there? Did something
I'm
happen?
fine. Roy, you see, isn't used to driving the desk, so he just knocked the phone down. He nearly knocked the screen over. He's looking a bit flustered now, I have to say.
Yes, and he managed to turn off the lights so you're completely in the dark as well.
Excellent. I do look better in the dark. I do definitely look better in the dark.
Yes, but not on camera.
But in fairness to Roy, he is new to the job. He's not at this that long.
Anyway, I will resume. So there are scratches and white marks all over this table. and thankfully the homework stage has finished. The last of them has gone off to college.
Oh, wow.
So
Great.
if a repair job is done, then hopefully it sticks. What will bring the table back to its former glory?
So just go back to the very top of the question when you read it. What type of table did the caller say it was?
Pine.
Pine. So, look, the easiest thing really to do here, I would say, is get some... This is the least amount of work with the most amount of impact. Get some 4-0 steel wool. So go to your local hardware shop or builders providers and get 4-0. That's 0000. People sometimes get confused over that. So you can get 10, 20, 30 and 40. And 40 is the finest. Whereas number one, forget the zeros, number one and number two and number three. Like number three is more coarse than a Brillo pad. Whereas 40 is really as fine as a woolly jumper. You'd never imagine to feel it. If you close your eyes and felt it, you'd never imagine it's steel wool at all. It just feels like a piece of cloth. And what you would do is get some methylated spirits and rub down the entire table with the methylated spirits and the steel wool, keeping a rag with you, an old T-shirt, a cotton. An old T-shirt is perfect because it's a cotton that doesn't leave any lint, any fluff behind. And
like what you're wearing today.
No. Yeah, that's the usual.
That's your old joke, isn't it?
That's my annual or biennial joke about your shirts. So wipe as you go because methylated spirits evaporates away almost immediately. And then once you've everything wiped down, get a pine coloured wax. So probably the best of them would be, the best known one would be Bry wax. And Bry wax is in a metal tin. When you open it, it's quite solid. So if you put it somewhere warm first, pop the lid on it and just put it with the lid open in the hot press for an hour or two and just let it get a little bit softer. And you put the first coat on with steel wool. Again, it seems counterintuitive to use steel wool on a varnished surface, but this table, because it's pine, it could have been a wax surface in the past. So put on the wax and leave it overnight, buff it up the following morning. The following night, put on another coat of wax, buff it up the following morning, and you'll do that 3 or 4 or 5 times. But really, once you've done the first one, you'll realise it actually only takes a few minutes. So it's successive coat after coat. And really, 9 times out of 10, you'll bring it to looking fantastic with really very little effort compared to sanding and revarnishing and having a different finish to the rest of the table if you revarnish. So that's what I would always suggest. 98 times out of 100, you'll transform it with fairly minimal effort.
Like the sound of that. We still have time to cram in a few more questions for Brian after these.
Mr. Fixes with Brian Cloonan. Call 0818 300 183 and put our toolman to the test.
Lots of different frustrations on text today, not necessarily of the DIY kind. For instance, Brian in Portlaoise would love to see the council cut parking by 20% in Portlaoise and start with the staff parking for the council workers themselves. Let them get a good soaking in a downpour by walking and cycling to work. That would allow them to embrace their beloved alternatives. Indeed. Okay. Our next question is from Catherine. She has tiles on her kitchen floor which were put down some years ago. They were supposed to be non-slip, but they are slippy. And she's wondering, is there a way to make them unslippy, or does she have to replace them?
There is a thing called permanent anti-slip, but the problem is it's like putting a very thin coat of a clear silicone on the floor, and it gets a bit grimy a bit quickly. So I would be sorry to have to say to you, you're probably as well to replace them, or maybe it might be easier just to cover them with. There's so many different floor coverings nowadays. You know, you don't just have the traditional lino, you have so many different types and so many laminates and so many surfaces that can go on the floor without lifting it that much. And I think that's probably the way to go.
Here's one that, I'm not sure if you have the time to answer. I got 18 solar panels in May at a cost of €14,000. My electricity supplier charges 38 cents per unit for usage and only pays 19 cents per unit for export. Are they worth it?
That's too big a question for me. You'd need a real expert on that.
And again, you have to do the sums. It's really...
And it's the life cycle. The one thing you always want to be asking is, what's the life cycle of it? Because you're doing it over... You have to do the sums over the life of the solar panels. And I suppose you have to remember the probability is that the price of electricity, as we know, as we've just heard earlier, is going to go up and up. So you're working with prices today, but you have to assume that in another 5 years it'll be another 10, 15, 20, whatever % more again. So do it over the life cycle of the solar panels.
But also remember that solar panels generate based on daylight hours. So if you're going to measure your export on, it's now the 10th of September,
yes,
it's going to be a lot less come the 21st of December.
Correct.
Now, conversely, it'll be a lot more on the 21st of June, but you just have to factor that into your sums and make sure that you have a blend. So, again, as Brian says, get expert advice. Joe asks, what is Brian's opinion of the best mould killer on the market?
Oh, there's so many. See, there's different concentration levels. The one we recommend is Sandtrax mould killer, but there's lots of different ones. So if with the Sandtrax, they recommend mixing that at a 5-to-1 mix to kill the mould. And then we print off a little leaflet and say, use it twice, use it at a 5-to-1 mix the first time, and then when you finish all your painting or all your cleaning or whatever it is, you mix it at a 3-to-1 mix the second time and don't wash it off. So it's a clear liquid, you put it on, and it's a little bit like putting on a weed killer to prevent the weeds from coming back. You're putting this on, you won't even know it's there. Like when you spray weed killer on your gravel, you won't see it, but it will be there and it will stop the mould from growing back in the future. But there's loads and loads of different brands out there.
Excellent. That's our time up for today. Let's chat again next Wednesday, 10:20.
Thanks, Will. Get well soon.
Thank you. You'll find him at Cloonan's Hardware in Tullamore. So, up next, David Hollywood with the final hour of the programme, including whether Westmeath County Council is going to invite Conor McGregor to make his pitch for the presidency.